It's finally stopped raining, so let's talk about some hammocks. Hammock camping can be as simple or as complicated as you like. Today we're just going to look at the absolute basics. So first, you're going to need a hammock. So in here is our nylon hammock. There are pros and cons to hammock camping, so we'll have a little look at those before we do anything with it. So what I like about the nylon ones is they're really compact and they don't weigh anything when they're in the bag. The downside to them is that they're really thin. So when we're actually out in them, especially when it's suspended, and if the wind gets up, because the wind surrounds us, it's above you, it's underneath, it can get quite cold. So you're going to need something more than just this. It's more complicated than you think. But we're just going to look at the basics today. So sticking to the pros of the little nylon hammock. What I like about most of these more modern ones is they come with the suspension kit attached to them. So in here is the actual hammock itself. Got the carabiners that it's going to attach to and the suspension system. So have a little look at that first. So the suspension system that comes with this one is really, really basic. We've got 1/2 inch webbing. Now these are tough as old boots. What I really like about these is they're really, really versatile. All I've done in the one length of it is just tied a really simple overhand knot towards one side. What I'm going to then do with this is effectively create a lark's head when it comes to go around the tree. Right, I'll show you. So we've got our suspension system not tied in, loop created. We're just going to pass the entire loop around the tree, starting at about head height, feed the knot back through itself. Over here you can probably see slightly more clearly, pass that back through itself. We're going to repeat the exact same thing on the other tree. Now admittedly, I use these two trees all the time so I know the actual distance. If we hadn't and we were in like an unfamiliar surroundings maybe, the distance between our two trees wants to be about 11 or 12 paces. Then this way we know that we've got room to suspend or fly that tarp above us if we know that the weather's coming in. Also, tying these off in like a lark's head isn't always going to be appropriate if you don't know the distance between these two trees and the actual hammock itself. Maybe we'll address that next time round with a slightly more in-depth look at it, but for now we're just going to stick to the basics. This is where art meets science when it comes to this, and it's all going to result in our comfort. Now our suspension angle wants to be roughly at about 30 degrees. No one's going to come and measure, but if we just take our hand, this between there is roughly, give or take a few, 30 degrees. So we're going to want our straps to hang down roughly to match that. What's really cool about most modern hammocks is they all come in this little bag, and the bag is attached to the hammock itself. So it means if it's packed sensibly enough, when you come to actually hang it back out, the material itself is never ever going to touch the ground. So I've packed it back in a way that the two carabiners are the first thing that are going to come out. So all we're going to do is attach one to that loop there, and then take the other one over to the other side. So you can see behind me that we've got our hammock strung now. You can see that it's also sagging in the middle. That's what we want to aim for. We don't want it to be too tight as we get in it. Otherwise it just puts unnecessary stress on all the systems involved. So we mentioned earlier maybe flying a tarp over the top of it to protect us from the elements, and we talked about keeping warm, or rather a nylon hammock being really cold. What we'd really need if we were looking at all-weather camping, or even in this kind of climate, is you want an under blanket. We're not going to get into that today, we'll do that another time. But for now, let's talk about getting in it. So you can see now I've just sat in it, and this is the perfect height. It wants to be about roughly the same height as a chair. We want to be able to sit in it comfortably with our feet still on the ground. Just remember, it's not just going to be for sleeping. We might be sitting in this, there's people around holding that nice conversation. It's just a nice little relaxing chill spot. So to get in here, the first thing we need to do, open it all up, and we're just going to sit in the centre. Let the suspension system and the hammock itself take your weight. And then we're going to pull the nylon up to the back of our knees. That is the one. Then from there, all we need to do is spin around. What we do that though, we can address any kind of balance issues that we may or may not be having. Like from where I'm sat, I know that the right hand side I can feel is slightly higher than the left. This isn't a problem for me, this comes down to personal preference. When I'm in the hammock, especially if I'm sleeping, I like my head to be slightly higher than my feet. Now a lot of people say the other way around. I find I just wake up with a headache. So we've talked about the balance, all that's left to do now is lay down. So again, we're just going to make sure the material's back behind our knees, stretch out the material behind us, and spin. Now you can see from where you are that I'm not laid following the line of the hammock. I find if I do, I end up all scrunched up like a banana. And for me that's not very comfortable. If you take a little bit of a diagonal slant on it, especially if you've got a sweet 2-manner, you can almost lie flat. In this position I can lay on my side, I can lay on my back, I can lay on my stomach. Best night's sleep ever. There we go. Nice and easy, quick, down and dirty hammock setup. We'll do another one of these in the next couple of weeks and go into a little bit more detail, especially with our camp setup and overnight camp coming up. But for now, especially if this is just, you know, for the day, it's more than adequate. So all I need to do now is get the pillow, wait for the farming to stop next door, get my head down for 5. And until next time, go explore.